There are many abandoned places around the world, but some are very creepy indeed. These 21 are prime examples. Long past their heyday, these 21 creepy abandoned buildings, wrecked ships, sunken cities, and old military installations are some of the scariest places in the world. Some of them have been redeveloped or demolished in recent times, but their legacy is still fresh in the minds of those who visited them. A few of them are strictly off limits, yet others are free for you to visit if you are brave enough. This list is far from exhaustive and in no particular order. Number 1. The Xtra roller coaster was a spooky abandoned fairground ride. Located in the Seaside Heights, New Jersey, the Xtra roller coaster was once a popular attraction between the 1970s and early 2000s. The owners did attempt to sell the site, but it was not financially viable to refurbish it. It was finally stricken down by the superstorm Sandy in 2012 and left to rust for 6 months in the Atlantic Ocean before being demolished. Number 2. Pripyat, the Chernobyl abandoned city. Pripyat was founded as a Soviet nuclear city in 1970 to house workers for the nearby ill-fated Chernobyl nuclear power station. It takes its name from the nearby Pripyat River and was officially recognized as a city in 1979 with a population in excess of 49,000. In 1986, as the nuclear facility faced meltdown, the entire city was evacuated. Access to the city is currently administered by Ukraine's Ministry of Emergencies that control activities within the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Radiation levels have fallen considerably since 1986, with equivalent doses ranging from 1 to 336 microsievert per hour. Today the city is the very definition of a ghost town. Number 3. The 107-year-old floating forest, SS Airfield. Homebush Bay used to be home to various ship-breaking operations during the mid-20th century. Various wrecked hulls remain in the area, including the most famous of them, the SS Airfield. The ship was built and launched from the UK in 1911 and later registered as SS Airfield in Australia in 1912 as a steam collier. It transported supplies during World War II and returned to service as a steam collier post-war until it was decommissioned in 1972. Most of its superstructure was reclaimed and scrapped during the 1970s, but ship-breaking operations ceased in the same decade, leaving the hull to float ominously in the bay. Nature has since reclaimed the ship, creating an amazingly beautiful, yet creepy, abandoned shipwreck. Number 4. The Hotel de Salto is a haunted abandoned hotel. The Hotel de Salto was first opened in 1928 to serve tourists visiting the nearby 157-meter Tequendama Falls. Reports of contaminated waters led tourists began to lose interest in visiting the hotel, and it was forced to close its doors in the early 1990s. The building was converted to a museum in 2012. Locals claim that people have decided to use the site to commit suicide, leading many to believe it's haunted. Number 5. Another creepy abandoned Soviet submarine base. The Pavlovsk Soviet-era nuclear submarine base was built between the 1960s, was abandoned and left unfinished in the 1980s. It is thought to have been built to serve as a nuclear bunker to protect the Soviet Union's precious nuclear submarines. The base features 2 large tunnels to house submarines with a maze of much smaller ones for personnel. Today it still remains abandoned and can often be found with frozen water in the submarine docking areas. Number 6. The haunted New Bedford Orpheum. The New Bedford Orpheum, or Orpheum Theater, is a now vacant theater and movie house on Water Street, New Bedford, Massachusetts. The building opened its doors on April 15, 1912. If that sounds familiar, it's the same day the Titanic was struck down. The theater was closed in 1958 and was only open for special occasions thereafter. It was later sold to a tobacco company who used it for storage in 1962, but it is now largely void. Today it's a spookily eerie place to behold, but there are plans afoot to revive the building by a non-profit organization. Number 7. This subway tunnel in Kiev is really creepy. There are some parts of the Kiev metro system that is rarely, if ever, visited or used. These sections of the tunnel are hidden deep beneath the city, are reminiscent of scenes from the James Cameron classic, Aliens. Many of these tunnels are often flooded and are so rarely maintained that stalactites have started to grow from the tunnel ceilings. Number 8. Yet another submarine base, but this time in Balaclava. Here's another Soviet-era submarine docking facility, but this one isn't completely abandoned but is still very creepy. It seems Russian communists have a penchant for building imposing and scary underground facilities. Decommissioned after the fall of the Soviet Union, this was once a top-secret facility near Balaclava. It was specifically designed to be able to withstand a nuclear strike and is deep underground. The structure was touted as virtually indestructible with its labyrinth of corridors and docks crowned with a shell of concrete and steel that was designed to resist a 100-kiloton blast. It was converted into a naval museum in recent times but has since closed because of the recent geopolitical issues in Crimea. The facility is currently disputed between Ukraine and Russia. Number 9. A creepy abandoned train station. The now derelict train station at Sukhumi, Abkhazia in Georgia was once a thriving rail hub for the city. When the railway finally reached the city in the 1930s, construction work began with the first station opening in 1940. The line later became incorporated into the Transcaucasian Railway with the current facility built in the mid-1950s. Built in the Stalinist architectural style, the building is both beautiful and foreboding in equal measures. It finally closed its doors during the war in Abkhazia when loyalist Georgian and rebel forces clashed during the early 1990s. Today much of the building has been partially reclaimed by nature, making for an interesting and creepy experience. Number 10. The really spooky military hospital in Germany. The Beelitz-Heilstatten Hospital is situated near Berlin in a little town called Beelitz, famous for asparagus. It was originally built at the beginning of the 20th century to treat tuberculosis, with the entire facility comprising around 60 buildings. It was commandeered as a military hospital during the World Wars and was also used for Nazi experiments during WW II. During the final days of the war, the facility was captured by Soviet forces and became their biggest military treatment center outside of Russia until 1994. Small parts of it are still in use for neurological research and treatment, but most are left derelict. Number 11. The disturbing wreck of the SS America. The SS America was commissioned and built in 1940 for the United States lines and designed by famed naval architect William Francis Gibbs. SS America had a distinguished service life of 54 years before ending up wrecked on the Playa de Garcia in the Canary Islands. Her name changed throughout that time, with her final name, at the time of wreckage, the SS America Star. At the time, she was under tow to be refitted as a floating hotel in Thailand when a large storm broke the tow lines, leaving her adrift. She can still be seen beached and wrecked but has largely broken up since 1994. A large part of her bow still remains visible at low tide and serves as a stark reminder of the power of the sea. Number 12. Sorrento Abandoned Mill is beautiful and scary. The Sorrento Abandoned Mill near Naples, Italy sits in a deep canyon, Vallone dei Mulini, Valley of the Mills, and has been partially reclaimed by nature. Stunningly beautiful in its decrepitude, it is both enticing and creepy at the same time. Built in the 10th century, it served as a flour mill until it was closed in 1866 when the Tasso Square was built. This event isolated it from the sea, increasing local humidity, rendering the mill impractical. The building was finally closed and abandoned to its fate in the 1940s. Number 13. This former NATO nuclear bunker is being turned into a cannabis factory. Built as part of the NATO defenses to combat the very real threat of Soviet Russia, this Cold War-era bunker is destined for a very different role in the future. One German entrepreneur, Christoph Rossner, has plans to grow medicinal cannabis in a forgotten nuclear bunker on a partially abandoned airbase. The recent legalization of cannabis in Germany will turn a once creepy abandoned nuclear bunker into something the architects could never have ever imagined. The former 50 meters long by 15 meter high bunker was once an integral part of the defenses of the Memmingen military base between 1956 and 2003. The facility's existing high security requirements are ideal for the strict regulations required by the Bavarian government for its indented use, and so its future plans might just be a win-win, depending on your views on the drug, of course. Number 14. The Paris catacombs are very spooky indeed. Hidden beneath the streets of Paris, this famous subterranean tomb holds the remains of no less than 6 million bodies. The underground cemetery was built in the last 18th century and was used by the French resistance as their HQ during the Second World War. The catacombs form a literal labyrinth beneath the heart of the city, was created in the galleries of former quarries used to build the city. The dead who now adorn the walls of the ossuary was gradually transferred there as graveyards were being closed for public health reasons. The first to be built was the Cimetière des Innocents graveyard in 1786 in what is now the district of Les Halles. Number 15. The Tirpitz Museum used to be a Nazi bunker. The Tirpitz Museum, as known as the Blaven Bunker Museum, features exhibits on the Nazis' ambitious Atlantic Wall project during the Second World War. The museum is built inside an old abandoned German bunker that formed part of the wall defenses along the west coast of Denmark. The museum has 2,500 square meters of exhibition space that features 4 exhibitions including a large amber collection, exhibitions on the bunker itself, a history museum and a special exhibitions gallery. Number 16. The IM Cooling Tower. The cooling tower to an abandoned power station in the town of Charleroi, Belgium still dominates the skyline but no longer bellows out steam. The power plant was originally built in 1921 and was, at the time, one of the largest coal-burning power plants in Belgium. At its height, the cooling tower was able to cool 480.000 gallons (1.8 million liters) of water per minute, and the power plant underwent improvements to burn natural gas in the 1970s. Number 17. The former sunken yacht Mar Sem Feen. A few years ago, if you'd found yourself in Ardley Cove in Antarctica, you wouldn't have been able to fail to notice an odd shape just under the sea surface. This is the creepy wreck of the Brazilian yacht Mar Sem Feen, Endless Sea. The yacht and her Brazilian film crew were filming a documentary when the vessel was hit by strong winds and got stuck in the ice. The crew abandoned the ship, leaving the Mar Sem Feen to its fate. The winds engulfed the ship in seawater that duly froze, cracking its hull and leaving it wrecked. Her remains were salvaged in 2013 and towed to shore. Number 18. The Monsell Sea Forts once housed pirate radio stations. Designed by Guy Monsell, these Army and Navy forts were built in the Thames and Mersey estuaries during the Second World War to defend the waterways in case of attack. Post-war, with the immediate threat from Axis forces removed, the forts were decommissioned and left to their fate. Although they are collectively called Monsell forts, they actually comprise of 2 distinct designs. The forts closest to the mainland were Army forts, pictured below. Those further out to sea were for naval purposes, serving as gun platforms. The forts have since been used for pirate radio activities, with one famously declaring itself independent from the UK as the Principality of Sealand, though its declared sovereign status is not officially recognized. Number 19. The Sanji UFO houses have now been demolished. The Sanji UFO houses, or Sanji pod houses, were a set of UFO-like housing pods in the Sanji district of New Tapai City. Their design was certainly bold, but the project was never completed and the units were left abandoned in the 1980s unfinished. Construction began on the building project in 1978 and they were intended to be used as a vacation resort. Lack of investment meant the project stalled and was never completed. The buildings were a tourist attraction for a time and were used as filming locations. The buildings were finally demolished in 2008 and by 2010 all UFO pods had been removed. Number 20. The underwater city of Xicheng is a sight to behold. The sunken city of Xicheng, Lion's Gate, dates back to the Eastern Han Dynasty, 25 to 200 AD. It was flooded in 1959 when construction began on the Xinan River hydropower station, flooding the region where the old city was located. The sunken abandoned city is also often referred to as China's Atlantis rediscovered. Its current predicament is actually beneficial to the site as it is now protected from the ravages of wind and rain erosion. Today it is beautifully preserved and can be found just 26 to 40 meters underwater. Number 21. St. George's Church has some scary residents. The now dilapidated St. George's Church in the Czech Republic is not only spooky from the outside but is equally creepy on the inside. The church was abandoned in the 1960s but has, in recent times, become home to some ghostly shrouded statues. The church was left to rot when its roof collapsed in 1968, and taking it as a bad omen, the resident boarded up the church soon after. Services were held outside the church instead. Despite this, residents wanted to see it restored, and so artist Jakub Hadrava was commissioned to turn it into an art installation to raise funds for the work. The plaster ghosts were installed in 2014 and have become a minor tourist attraction. I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up and thanks for watching.